process that affects neonates. It occurs within several weeks of birth, and it is the most common indication for hepatic transplantation in that age group. They mentioned something called a PSI procedure, and I'll give you a website if you want to see what that looks like. It's VARC network, biliary atresia, whatever RC stands for, network.org/I, the letter I, /PSI, KASAI.PNG, and that'll show you what the procedure looks like that they do. Is it showing up? Okay. All right. Let's talk about diseases of the pancreas. As we've already alluded to before, the pancreas has both exocrine functions, which we've talked about, responsible for helping with the digestion of the foodstuffs through the secretion of pancreatic secretions and pancreatic enzymes, and has an endocrine function as well, which we're going to talk about when we talk about endocrine pathophysiology. And so disorders of the pancreas can, depending on the extent of the disorder, interfere, and the nature of the disorder can interfere with both its exocrine function and its endocrine function. So let's talk first about pancreatitis. And the first thing we're going to talk about is there's two kinds of pancreatitis. There's acute pancreatitis and chronic pancreatitis. Acute and chronic pancreatitis. The book kind of sort of conflates those two, but it's important to think about whether you're dealing with acute or chronic pancreatitis because there are differences. It says the two most common causes of pancreatitis are alcohol and gallstones, and that's true. But for example, gallstones do not cause chronic pancreatitis; they cause acute pancreatitis. So it's important to specify what type of pancreatitis you're talking about. Okay. In terms of how it happens, what the pathophysiology involves, it's still sort of a little bit of a black box. But it's thought that some process, maybe elevation of intracellular calcium, leads to the activation of the proteases, which should not be activated basically until they get out into the duodenum lumen. If they become activated in the pancreas, then those proteases go to work on the pancreas itself, and you get inflammation and cell death. So these are the causes of acute pancreatitis, and you see gallstones and alcohol are at the top of the list, but other things can cause it as well. Hyperlipidemias. This is one of the reasons why we treat, for example, not hypercholesterolemia, what's the other one? Yeah, hypertriglyceridemia. So when the triglycerides get above, once they get up around 500 and above 500, then you need to start to worry that the person might develop pancreatitis as a result. So that is one of the reasons why real hypertriglyceridemia might need to be treated. So this is basically showing you in schematic fashion the pathogenesis of acute pancreatitis, starting basically in chronological order, showing you the different injuries that occur. Obviously, in severe pancreatitis, patients can develop extrapancreatic disease, including they can develop shock, they can develop acute renal failure, they can develop respiratory distress syndrome. Again, this is multi-organ failure that's related to the pancreatitis or whatever causes pancreatitis. And of course, in the most serious cases, patients can succumb to their illness. Let's talk about the approach to acute pancreatitis. Basically, you want to distinguish between patients that have a mild form of the disease and patients that have a more severe form of the disease. And you're going to do that based, among other things, on the prognostic side. I think there's a slide in here that talks about the Ranson criteria, RANSON. So you can basically get some idea about how people are going to do prognostically. You're going to do it based on the presence or absence of other systemic complications that the last slide alluded to. What they're saying here is that patients that have this disease, that fall into this category, usually have interstitial pancreatitis, whereas patients that have severe disease may have something called necrotizing pancreatitis, and we'll talk about why that makes a difference. In patients that fall into this category, imaging is not necessary, or patients that fall into this category, they do need to be imaged. To distinguish between the patients that have indications of severe disease but have interstitial pancreatitis, okay, or patients that have indications of severe disease and in fact have what they usually have, which is necrotizing pancreatitis. Okay, the patients that are confirmed to have necrotizing pancreatitis, they may need to have treatment with antibiotics over here, and depending on how they do in spite of all of that, they may require surgical divisions of the pancreas in order to stabilize it. In terms of complications that patients can develop with acute pancreatitis, so this is divided into over time. These are the early complications, so fluid electrolyte imbalance. They can put a lot of fluid into the pancreas and around the pancreas, depending on the severity of the pancreatitis. They can have metabolic disturbances as a result. And we talked about how patients with severe pancreatitis can develop renal dysfunction, sometimes pulmonary dysfunction, and cardiovascular compromise. If they get past the acute stage, the complications that you worry about later on include the development of pancreatic cirrhosis and fluid collections. We're going to talk about those fluid collections in a second. And then more chronically, they can develop something called a pseudocyst. Okay, chronic pancreatitis is a different entity, and we've already talked about. You talked about it. You were exposed to it in the medical imaging course. I think you probably learned that one of the markers of chronic pancreatitis that patients can have sort of diffuse calcification or body calcification in the pancreas. The case of chronic pancreatitis, you can see that on the plain film. You can see it on CT scanning. And while alcohol is a common cause of chronic pancreatitis, especially in the West, gallstone pancreatitis is not associated with chronic pancreatitis. So you see that gallstones are not on the list. Okay? And so here's the calcification of the pancreas in somebody that has chronic pancreatitis. So if somebody has severe long-standing chronic pancreatitis, what kind of complications might you think that they might be predisposed to? Thinking about what the pancreas does, what kind of compromise might they develop? Say again? Yeah, so if they have exocrine failure, depending on how much of the pancreas, like you got to wipe out something like 90% of the pancreas before they develop that. But yeah, if they get enough of the pancreas that's compromised, they can develop malabsorption, they can develop steatorrhea, and so that those people are going to then be managed. Remember the approach. One of the approaches to that would be to give them empiric treatment with pancreatic enzymes and see if that makes the problem better. What else could they develop? Yeah, they could develop diabetes. They could develop endocrine. They could develop diabetes. Oh. Okay, carcinoma of the pancreas. Carcinoma of the pancreas is really the best way to think of this is as basically two different diseases, depending on where the carcinoma develops. Carcinoma can develop in the head of the pancreas, or it can develop in the tail of the pancreas. And where it develops is going to go a long way towards determining how the patient presents and how early in the course of their disease that it presents. So patients that develop with a lesion in the head of the pancreas generally present earlier because they can develop jaundice. As you remember that here's the hepatic duct, here's the cystic duct, here's the common bile duct, and it's going to join with the pancreatic duct down here and empty through the sphincter of Oddi, the ampulla of Vater into the duodenum. Well, if it becomes large enough to obstruct the common bile duct, the patients are going to develop jaundice. Okay, and are they going to develop an unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia or conjugated hyperbilirubinemia? Conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Okay, and so is their urine going to turn dark? Yes. Okay, and might their stool turn clay colored? Yeah. Okay, so that's the way they're going to present earlier. And the jaundice that they develop is painless jaundice. Okay? So painless jaundice, okay, is not usually a good sign. Painless jaundice, sometimes you hope, well, if maybe they have gallstones. Usually those are painless. So if they have painless jaundice, that's usually not a good sign. So they do point out that patients can develop pain associated with tumor progression later on. A carcinoma of the body or the tail of the pancreas is not going to cause jaundice because it's not going to be anywhere near the junction of the pancreatic duct with the common bile duct. So they're more likely to present with abdominal pain or back pain or weight loss or anorexia. They point out that a characteristic feature is relief of the pain sitting forward. So these people are going to present later in the course of their disease. But in any event, head or tail, it's not a disease that you want to get. The only chance to cure is the surgical excision, the Whipple procedure, which is tremendously devastating operation. This can take out the whole pancreas. I guess they take out part of the duodenum as well. So the prognosis is grim. There's several of these contrast against CT, showing the cancer of the body of the pancreas, the retroperitoneal extension, and closing the branches of the celiac axis. So I guess this is the celiac axis over here, the aorta, and there's the tumor all around. There's the pancreas, and the duct, and this is the tumor all around the celiac. Okay, these are famous people that died of pancreatic cancer. So you'll see that is. It's always good to see how out of touch I am with modern reality anymore. And you know this? Huh?
No, that's not done.
Oh, exactly what happened.
Yeah, Michael Landon. He was on after before he was on Little House on the Prairie. He was on So-Called Bonanza.
Oh, yeah.
100 years ago. So that's Michael Landon. I remember he was on. Everybody remember the Johnny Carson show? He was on the Johnny Carson show one time. At the end, after he'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he told Johnny Carson that I'm doing what do you do for your disease? He asked him. He said, I'm doing different things like coffee enemas. And Johnny Carson, who could talk with anybody about anything, he said, coffee enemas. He goes, boy, you must be a lot of fun around the breakfast table. How about this? Joan Crawford. Yeah. Joan Crawford, there she is with I guess, the risk factor of pancreatic carcinoma. This one, obviously, she had her own show, but she was in a movie called, we'll see the movie, the Christmas movie. It's a Wonderful Life. It was Jimmy Stewart. This was Richard Crenna. Okay, so he was in lots of things. He was in a show years ago called The Real McCoys with Walter Brennan. That was like in the 1950s or the 1960s. And then he was in a movie, I don't know if anybody's seen it, 1970 or 71. It was called Marooned. It was a fictional account of Patho that marooned in space, and coincidentally it came out, and then an American capsule ran into trouble in space. So it got a lot of attention. And then he was also in the Rambo movie. Right? He was Rambo's superior officer from the officer. Okay, this was Jack Benny. He was a comedian whose thing was that he was chief who played the violin. This is what's his name? What is it? Somebody tell me face. It's not Richard Harris, it's Nelson. He was in Mary's not Mary Poppins. He was in My Fair Lady. Who's the guy in My Fair Lady? Anyway. Billy Carter, who was the president, the then president's brother, died of pancreatic cancer, and now I think he's got melanoma. Right? So doesn't former President Carter have melanoma? Yeah, right. Anybody? Famous Italian actress, Anna Magnani, who's anybody ever see the movie The Secret of Santa Vittoria? It was actually an American movie, but it was filmed in Italy. It was about a great movie if you really want to. It's a movie about a fictional Italian town of Santa Vittoria that makes wine, like a lot of Italian towns do. And it was at the end of World War II, and it's how the town protects their wine from the Nazis. And she is the wife of the hero in the movie, Anthony Quinn. Very funny movie. How about this? This is former New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia, who they named the airport after. And this is what's his name? Vince. Anyway, he was Dr. Ben Casey. Back in the 1960s, there were two big medical stores, dueling medical stores. There was Dr. Kildare, and there was Ben Casey. He was Dr. Ben Casey. Yeah, that's right. I got to put it in. Now, did he have pancreatic? Was it adenosine, or wasn't it? It was something else. So I don't know. Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze. Yeah, Patrick Swayze. So I really got to say it. Where's Harris? Dr. Doolittle. Okay, yeah. There he is. All right. Any other questions about this? All right. I'm going to skip over the stuff on abdominal pain because it's relatively straightforward. This, you can take a look at this. This will give you an approach to abdominal pain. So you can take a look at that, an algorithmic approach. And a lot of the other stuff at the end of the chapter was covered in medical imaging and physical diagnosis. So it's not that you're not responsible for it, you are responsible for it. It's just that I don't think I'm going to add anything by spending any time on it. All right, so any questions about that before we talk about hematology?
Bless you, Bob.
Okay, so let's. Oh, by the way, I think that the lecture that they added, I think they added for Monday morning. All right, so Friday's still a short day, but the last lecture, which will be rheumatology, will be Monday morning, and then the rest of that week. Okay, so let's talk about the hematological system. Basically, with this slide lays out the hematopoiesis from a multipotent uncommitted stem cell, okay, through the various to the final end product, okay, and then all of the stages, the intermediate stages of the different lines in between, okay. You don't have to memorize anything like this, but you should understand that depending, for example, on where something goes awry in hematopoiesis, that could determine what disease the patient has, okay? For example, there are certain types of leukemia that are associated with disorders of particular stages in this line here, okay? And so depending on where along the line the patient the cell goes awry, the hematopoietic process goes awry, the patient's going to develop that disorder. Likewise, we talked about aplastic anemia. Remember, and we said aplastic anemia was a misnomer and that actually affects multiple cell lines. And that's telling you something about where the problem is in the hematopoietic cascade as well. Okay, so let's talk first about erythrocytes. And the book discusses the two main things that can go wrong with the red cell line, anemia and polycythemia, where anemia refers to a decrease in the red cell mass or the red cell number, and polycythemia is to the converse. So let's talk first about anemia. And as the book makes clear, patients that have anemia are going to have symptoms that are going to remind you of some of the things you've seen before. So they can develop tachycardia and shortness of breath. We've seen those things before when we talked about cardiac disease, and it's no surprise because really what produces the tachycardia and the shortness of breath is the heart's inability or the body's inability to provide oxygen to the tissues that need them. Okay, so patients that have anemia since most of the oxygen under physiologic conditions, most of the oxygen that's carried is going to be carried on the hemoglobin of the red cells. If patients have a decreased red cell number, red cell mass, they have trouble getting oxygen to the tissues, and so they can develop problems with tachycardia, shortness of breath, etc. It goes back to cardiac output, heart rate still fine, but remember that ultimately the oxygen is going to be carried mostly by hemoglobin in the red cells. They can develop pallor on physical exam, tachycardia, exertional dyspnea. Okay, so let's talk about now some of the labs that are associated with this. They talk about the hemoglobin and the hematocrit. Hematocrit is basically the percentage of the blood volume that's actually occupied by the red blood cells. And a normal hematocrit is going to depend on whether you're male or female. It's going to depend on the lab, but it's going to be somewhere around 40%. In terms of the things that can cause anemia, the book lists the causes in terms of pathophysiology. So, for example, you can have a process that interferes with the production of red cells, interferes with hematopoiesis, and they list, for example, problems with the bone marrow. So an example of that would be, for example, aplastic anemia, or some type of an infiltrative process, where you have infiltration of the bone marrow, maybe with tumor or something. They list also problems with erythropoietin production. So patients that have renal failure and are underproducing erythropoietin to develop anemia, or you can have problems with one of the building blocks for erythropoiesis. So if the patient has B12 deficiency, folic acid deficiency, iron deficiency, most people can develop anemia as well. A second category is patients that are losing red cells either because of destruction of the red cells by hemolysis or loss of blood, for example, in the GI tract. You have bleeding to do that. So those are the two main causes. But another useful way to think about it, and the book doesn't talk so much about it, we're going to talk a little bit about it here. A useful way to think about anemia clinically is to think about the anemia morphologically, because that's really the information that you're going to get early on, and it will help you organize your approach to the patient with anemia. So, for example, one can distinguish patients that have macrocytic anemia from patients that have microcytic anemia from patients that have normal cytic anemia. Okay? Macrocytic anemia is associated with an increased MCV. So an MCV is something that you get back on the CBC, the mean corpuscular volume, and it tells you basically what the volume is of the average volume of the red cell. Okay? So if the mean corpuscular volume is increased, it means you're dealing with large red cells. So again, this is information you would get on the CBC that's going to show up when you order the CBC on a patient. But you can also tell that a patient has macrocytic anemia. Let's say you don't have that available to you. How else can you tell if somebody has macrocytic anemia? You probably don't have to do that. You're more likely to have a CBC available to you than a microscope. But if you do a smear of blood and you look at the red cells, you can see that they're larger than normal. Okay. People don't do that so much anymore, but they used to do that. They actually used to have to make their own smears and stuff like that. So that is another option. Okay, so macrocytic anemias are associated with increased MCV, and they include B12 deficiency, folic acid deficiency, alcoholism, hypothyroidism, and myelodysplastic syndrome. Microcytic anemias are anemias that are associated with small red cells, okay? And let me go back to B12-folate alcoholic liver disease, cancer chemotherapy. The other thing that can cause an increase in the MCV is reticulocytosis, because reticulocytes are larger than normal red cells. In terms of the microcytic, the things that cause microcytic anemia, iron deficiency, thalassemia, sideroblastic anemia, and anemia of chronic disease can also produce a microcytic anemia of chronic disease. And finally, normocytic anemias, this is everything else, okay? These are associated with normal-looking red cells, normal-sized red cells. And again, the differential diagnosis includes aplastic anemia, anemia of chronic disease at a different stage. I think at an earlier stage of normocytic, at a later stage of microcytic, and then other chronic renal failure, no erythropoiesis, hemolysis produces normocytic anemia. Okay, so let's talk. I'm still on page 119. Let's talk a little bit about some of the different entities that they talk about. They mentioned that anemias that are the result of decreased production of red cells include problems with the bone marrow, and one of the ones that they talk about is aplastic anemia. As I said before, aplastic anemia is a misnomer because it doesn't just cause anemia, it causes neutropenia, and it causes thrombocytopenia. And it will result from injury to a pluripotent stem cell, to a stem cell that can drive to all those three lines, platelets, white cells, and red cells. So that makes sense. It's an injury to a pluripotent stem cell. They point out that aplastic anemia can be caused by viruses and drugs. What drugs do we talk about as causes aplastic anemia? What? Well, chemotherapy is going to cause lots of problems, but there's a drug that causes aplastic anemia. That is the reason we don't use it. Yes, chloramphenicol. Okay, chloramphenicol. And 70% of cases of aplastic anemia are idiopathic, which means we don't know why the person has it. So it could be drugs, it could be viruses, it could be idiopathic. Okay. Okay. So this basically is showing you, if you look under a microscope and you see and you're looking at the red cells, this is going to show you what this is normal. Okay, these are normal sized red cells. Okay, you can take that as a given. These are normal. Then macrocytic cells are going to have red cells that are larger and higher than the normal. Microcytic, you can see, are going to be smaller. Okay. Normocytic anemia is going to be associated with the same size red cells, but decrease in number. Okay. And then the patients that have hemolytic anemia, you can see different things. The hemolysis is a little bit complicated. I'll tell you in 1 second. But you usually see abnormally shaped cells because you sometimes get fragments of cells left behind. The reason hemolytic anemia is a little bit complicated is that if somebody's hemolyzed, usually what they're doing, assuming they're able to do so, is they develop a reticulocytosis to try and replenish the blood cells. If the problem is not with production, but with destruction or bleeding, usually they develop a reticulocytosis. Okay? So reticulocytes are larger than normal red cells because they're earlier they're earlier on. Red cells get smaller as they get older. So they can have a higher percentage of reticulocytes, and that's going to tend to raise the MCV. Okay? All right. Let's talk about iron deficiency anemia. So this is another cause of decreased production of red cells, lack of iron as a raw material. Patients that have iron deficiency anemia, again, are going to develop a microcytic anemia. And again, you would suspect iron deficiency. Who would you think would develop iron deficiency? What kind of patients do you think would develop iron deficiency? Okay, so normal menstruating women. Who else? Huh? Shouldn't get iron deficiency just because you're old. Huh? Oh, well, you know, the body holds on to iron pretty happily. And so if you want to attribute iron deficiency anemia to a problem with intake of iron, you have a lot of resistance to overcome. That basically would be a diagnosis of last resort. That should never be the first thing that comes out of your mouth. Why is it taking iron deficiency? We're not taking it in enough iron. That's the last resort. So usually it's going to be related to some type of, it's got to be presumed to be blood loss until proven otherwise, right? So who else is going to develop iron deficiency? Huh? Well, what kind of thing? Huh? No. So patients that have blood loss. So patients, for example, that have an ulcer, or patients that have colon cancer. Remember we said, I told you this before, don't ever forget it. Iron deficiency anemia is colon cancer until proven otherwise. Okay? So anything that causes blood loss could be associated with iron deficiency anemia. So if you have a normal menstruating young female and you think that that's the cause of the iron deficiency anemia, great. But if you have anything else, then you need to either do a rectal exam and check for black, or you have to give them a black card and make sure that they return, make sure that they don't have colon cancer. So that's going to be associated with those are the things those are the things expected. And then we think there's one other disease that causes associated with iron deficiency because of defective iron absorption. It's not associated with blood loss. We talked about it when we talked about malabsorption. Huh? No. Pernicious anemia is associated with B12 deficiency, and so that's a macrocytic anemia. It's a disease that causes malabsorption, and it can be associated with iron deficiency because of problems with absorption of iron. No, it's we only mentioned this pattern. We didn't spend a lot of time on it. It's yeah, celiac spurum. You know, it really is true. You get to a certain age, and like I can see a picture in my mind, or like even Rex Harrison over there, and all I know can't connect it with anything anymore. It's just awful. So, all right. All right. So that's okay. Let's talk about some of the physical findings of patients with iron deficiency anemia. Things that you look for on physical diagnosis. Have you talked about this in physical diagnosis yet? Abnormals in physical diagnosis yet? So some of the things that you would look for in patients that have iron deficiency anemia would be chelosis or angular stomatitis, so they get breakdown at the corners of their mouth. Okay. They can also develop glossitis, inflammation of the tongue. I'll show you some pictures now. Okay, so you see how the tongue looks kind of shiny and flat and red. Okay, so glossitis is other thing that they can develop, angular stomatitis or chelosis. See the breakdown at the corners of the mouth? See that? All right. They can develop something called koilonychia, Koilonychia, which is product of the nails, splitting of the nails. You see that they have like almost like a spoon shape to the nails, okay? And they can develop esophageal webs. Remember we talked about esophageal rings and esophageal webs? Remember the difference between the rings and the webs? Is that the rings have, right? Right, they don't have the mucosal layer, okay? So iron deficiency can be associated with an esophageal web. So let's just review what kind of never mind. Okay. Remember we said that iron deficiency is associated with the morphologic anemia that it's associated with is microcytic anemia, and that the differential diagnosis is going to be iron deficiency, thalassemia, sideroblastic anemia, and anemia of chronic disease. Okay? Anemia of chronic disease. The diagnosis is going to be made by measuring a serum ferritin, and so serum ferritin is low in iron deficiency, and the transferrin is the total iron binding capacity is increased. So iron deficiency is associated with a decrease in the serum ferritin to less than 15 micrograms per liter, and an increase in the total iron binding capacity. Decreased iron, increased total iron binding capacity, decreased transferrin saturation, because if the iron is going down, if the numerator is going down and the TIBC is going up, the denominator is going up, then that ratio is going to go down. Okay, so the fraction of the TIBC is the total iron binding capacity. As iron goes down and total the proteins that iron binds to goes up, then the fraction of the total iron binding capacity proteins that are occupied by iron goes down. Okay, so that's the important thing to remember. You see a fall in iron, fall in serum iron, a fall in the ferritin to less than 15 micrograms per liter, an increase in the total iron binding capacity, and a decrease in the transferrin saturation, which is the ratio of the iron to the TIBC. Is that clear?
Listen, iron deficiency.
Say that again.
Iron deficiency.
Right, iron deficiency anemia. Okay. The next topic that they talk about is B12 and folate deficiency. And remember we said, and again, this is also an anemia that's due to decreased production of red cells because of lack of raw materials. Remember that the morphologic type that these diseases are associated with are macrocytic anemia. It is macrocytic anemia. And the differential diagnosis of macrocytic anemia is going to include B12 deficiency, folic acid deficiency, alcoholic liver disease, cancer chemotherapy. Okay. Remember we said reticulocytosis can also be associated with an increased MCV, so be aware of that. And B12 and folic acid are special among the macrocytic anemias because B12 and folic acid deficiency cause an anemia that is not only macrocytic, but megaloblastic. Okay, and so it's associated. These are associated with hypersegmentation of polymorphonucleotides. So if you look at a normal poly, okay, so here's a normal nucleus, okay, and you see it's got like 3 lobes or so. So the nucleus becomes nucleus from like little lobules. But a hypersegmented poly has like 5 or 6 or more, okay. So you can see this in B12 deficiency and folic acid deficiency because of the effect that it has on DNA synthesis. So B12 and folic acid are not only macrocytic, but megaloblastic. So the other causes are macrocytic but not megaloblastic. Okay, the diagnosis. Who would you the diagnosis of B12 and folic acid? Who would you suspect B12 deficiency in? So it could be a person that has what? Huh? Oh, for people that have pernicious anemia. Okay, obviously people that have by definition are going to be B12 deficient. And what about folic acid deficiency? Who's prone to the development of folic acid deficiency? Huh? Yeah, people with alcohol abuse. Okay, so folic acid deficiency is suspected in that. The diagnosis of these things is going to be made by basically measuring. You suspect B12 deficiency, you measure the serum B12. What about folic acid deficiency? You suspect folic acid deficiency, and you measure serum folic acid. You know, is that a good idea? Obviously, the answer must be no, otherwise why would it be answered? The answer is no, because what happens is that as soon as the person eats a meal, usually they're in the hospital, so they got sent in the emergency room, or they get fed as soon as they get to the floor. As soon as they eat a meal, the serum B12 can go back to normal. So what you have to measure is the red blood cell folate. The red blood cell folate. That takes a while to come back. Okay? But if they have a macrocytic anemia or megaloblastic anemia and the B12 is normal, it's okay if the B12 is normal, if the doctor says the B12 is normal, it's okay to say, well, maybe folic acid, I'll just treat them. It's a B vitamin. So you just give it. If they're not sufficient, they'll just see it out. Okay, that's okay to treat empirically. Remember we said that B12 is associated with neurological signs and symptoms. We talked about that. The effect on posterior columns and how it affects cognition and stuff like that. And remember that they can develop those signs and symptoms before they develop anemia. So they don't have to have anemia. The neurological stuff can anticipate the appearance of the anemia. So if you had a person in whom the differential diagnosis of, let's say, their anemia included B12 deficiency, as part of your physical exam, you should make sure you do a neurological assessment because the prefect is going to ask you, what's the neurological exam? Is it normal or not? Okay, so you see that? So part of the art of medicine is to figure out, well, what is it? I can't do everything on everything. I can't do that 55-minute exam that being taught me to do. I can't do that. So what do I have to do in this case? What makes sense? They give you some of the causes of B12 and folate deficiency there. Inadequate intake, decreased demand, decreased absorption, and they talk about that these can be a disease can be decreased due to the disease of the terminal ileum or the absence of intrinsic factor. Okay, so here is so this is the stomach mucosa. You have loss of parietal cells due to autoimmune activity. If you take out the parietal cells, you take out intrinsic factors. If you don't have intrinsic factors, you can't absorb B12, and so they develop neurological disease, anemia, etc. Okay. And this thing is in there to show you. Remember, I said that the absence of B12 and folic acid interfere with B12 with the DNA synthesis, and that's why these patients are prone to the development of megaloblastic anemia. And this shows you the DNA, and it shows you the stage at which the absence of folic acid and B12 come into play. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is important for understanding the pathophysiology of folic acid deficiency. Let's take a break and then we'll come back. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I'm gonna throw my computer out the window.